Ambassador Jake Morrison stood at the window of the human ship UHS Liberty and looked out at the massive space station ahead of them. The Galactic Council station was bigger than any human city he had ever seen. It spun slowly in the dark space, between three bright stars. Lights blinked across its surface like tiny diamonds. Ships from dozens of different alien worlds moved around it like busy insects. Jake had been preparing for this day for 3 years. He was going to ask the Galactic Council to let humanity join their group. It was the most important mission in human history. Behind him stood Lieutenant Commander Lisa Carter and her team of 5 security guards. They wore their best-dressed uniforms but kept their weapons ready. Lisa had short brown hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. She had been Jake's bodyguard for 2 years and knew him better than most people. The Liberty was not the biggest human ship, but it was the most beautiful. Its white hull gleamed in the starlight. Blue stripes ran along its sides with the symbol of Earth painted near the front. Captain Ben Rogers had polished every surface until it shone. He wanted the aliens to see that humans took this meeting seriously. Jake touched the scar on his left hand. He had gotten it as a child when he fell from a tree. His mother had told him it would remind him to be careful. Now he hoped it would remind him to be smart. The aliens had been watching humans for 50 years. They had seen human wars and human mistakes. They thought humans were too young and too violent to join their peaceful council. The docking bay of the station was enormous. Ships from 12 different worlds sat in neat rows. Jake saw the long silver ships of the Krellians with their sharp points and glowing engines. The ethereal ships looked like floating crystals that seemed to bend light around them. The hive ships were dark and looked like they had been grown instead of built. Each ship was different, but they all looked old and powerful. Jake walked down the ramp from the Liberty with Lisa and her team behind him. The station's air tasted strange and smelled like metal and ozone. Gravity here was lighter than Earth, normal, and Jake felt like he might float away with each step. Alien beings moved around them, but none looked at the humans directly. Some whispered to each other in languages that sounded like music or clicking or low rumbles. A tall, blue alien with 4 arms approached them. It wore robes covered in symbols that glowed softly. This was Guide Yelnox, who would take them to the council chamber. The alien's voice sounded like wind through leaves when it spoke through a translation device. Human delegation follow this one to the speaking chamber. Council waits with little patience. Jake noticed that Yelnox did not welcome them or offer any of the usual diplomatic pleasantries. The alien turned and walked away without checking if they followed. Lisa stepped closer to Jake and whispered, "They are not happy we are here, sir." Jake nodded but kept walking. He had expected this. Humans had been trying to contact the Galactic Council for decades. The aliens had ignored most messages and refused most meetings. They only agreed to this one because humans had saved a Krellian merchant ship from space pirates 6 months ago. Even then, the meeting was granted with obvious reluctance. The corridors of the station were wide and tall. Strange artwork covered the walls, showing scenes from alien worlds Jake could not identify. Some showed battles between creatures with too many legs. Others showed cities floating in clouds or underwater. All of it reminded Jake that humans were newcomers to this galaxy. These races had been exploring space when humans were still learning to make fire. They passed groups of aliens talking in small clusters. Jake saw Krellians with their scaled skin and sharp teeth, ethereals that looked like living energy trapped in glass suits, hive members that looked like giant insects standing on 2 legs. All of them stopped talking when the humans walked by. Some stared with curiosity. Others looked away with what seemed like disgust. The council chamber was a huge, circular room with seats rising up in rings around a central floor. Each section was designed for a different species. The Krellian section had heated stone benches. The ethereal section had floating platforms that glowed with soft light. The hive section looked like a collection of hexagonal cells. In the center sat a large chair where Chairman Vexathara waited. Vexathara was the largest Krellian Jake had ever seen. His scales were dark green with gold edges, and his eyes were bright yellow. Claws as long as human fingers tapped against the arm of his chair. When he looked at Jake, his lips pulled back to show rows of sharp teeth. This was not a smile of welcome. Jake walked to the center of the chamber and bowed slightly. It was a gesture of respect, but not submission. He had practiced it many times. Around the chamber, representatives from 12 species watched him with expressions he could not read. The air felt heavy with tension and barely hidden hostility. Jake stood in the center of the council chamber and began his prepared speech. His voice was clear and strong as he spoke about humanity's desire for peace and cooperation. He talked about human achievements in medicine and technology. He mentioned how humans had helped other species when they needed aid. He explained that humanity wanted to learn from the older races and contribute to galactic peace. Chairman Vexathara listened with his yellow eyes fixed on Jake. His claws continued to tap against his chair in a steady rhythm that sounded like distant thunder. Around the chamber, other aliens shifted in their seats. Some whispered to each other. Others made sounds that might have been laughter, but not the kind that showed amusement. When Jake finished speaking, the chamber fell silent. The silence stretched on for long minutes. Jake could hear his own heartbeat and the soft hum of the station's air systems. Lisa Carter stood perfectly still behind him, but her hand had moved closer to her weapon. Her team spread out slightly, to cover more of the chamber. High Mystic Zara Lynn of the Ethereal Communion spoke first. Her voice came through speakers since her energy form could not make sounds humans could hear directly. The young species speaks of peace, but their worlds show evidence of countless wars. They speak of cooperation, but they fight among themselves, even now. Why should we trust beings who cannot trust each other? Hive Queen Zis clicked her mandibles together rapidly before speaking. This species breeds without control and spreads across worlds like a disease. They consume resources and leave waste behind. They are parasites that will drain the galaxy. Other council members added their own complaints. The Aquatic Federation said humans polluted water. The Crystal Mines said human thoughts were too chaotic and violent. The Tree Speakers said humans cut down forest without asking permission. Each criticism felt like a physical blow to Jake, but he kept his expression calm. Chairman Vexathara finally stood up from his chair. He was even bigger standing than sitting. His head nearly touched the ceiling of the chamber, and his shadow fell across Jake like a dark cloud. When he spoke, his voice was deep and full of anger. Humans are a plague upon this galaxy. You arrived like thieves in the night and began taking what does not belong to you. You settle on worlds without permission. You mine asteroids that belong to others. You spread your contamination from system to system like a virus. Jake opened his mouth to respond, but Vexathara held up one clawed hand for silence. You dare to come before this ancient council and ask for acceptance. You are children playing with tools you do not understand. You are animals that learn to use fire and think yourselves gods. The Galactic Council has maintained peace for 10,000 years. We will not let primitive creatures destroy what we have built. The chamber erupted in sounds of agreement. Aliens in the galleries made noises of approval. Some pounded on their seats or stamped their feet or clicked their claws. The sound was deafening and hostile. Jake felt sweat on his forehead despite the cool air. Vexathara stepped down from his platform and began walking toward Jake. Each step made the floor vibrate slightly. His yellow eyes burned with hatred, and his claws were extended like weapons. Other council members leaned forward in their seats to watch what would happen next. You want to know what the Galactic Council thinks of humanity? Vexathara growled as he came closer. I will show you exactly what we think. Jake started to take a step back but forced himself to stand still. He was a diplomat representing all of Earth. He could not show fear in front of these aliens no matter what happened. Lisa Carter moved forward slightly, but Jake held up a small hand gesture to stop her. This was his moment and his responsibility. Vexathera stopped directly in front of Jake. The alien leader towered over the human ambassador. His breath smelled like sulfur and old meat. His claws glinted in the chamber's lights. For a moment, they stared at each other in complete silence. "This is what happens to vermin who dare stand before their betters," Vexathera said in a voice that filled the entire chamber. The Krellian's massive clawed hand swept down in a vicious arc that caught Jake across the left side of his face. The blow lifted the human ambassador off his feet and sent him flying backward to crash on the hard floor. Blood immediately began flowing from 4 deep cuts that ran from his temple to his jaw. The sound of the impact echoed through the chamber, like a gunshot. Jake lay on the floor, struggling to breathe. His vision was blurred and blood was pooling beneath his head. He could taste copper in his mouth and feel warm liquid running down his neck. The pain was incredible, but he forced himself to stay conscious. He could hear aliens in the galleries cheering and making sounds of approval. Lisa Carter and her security team immediately rushed forward. They formed a protective circle around their fallen ambassador while scanning the chamber for additional threats. Lisa knelt beside Jake and pressed a medical patch against his wounds to stop the bleeding. Her face was pale with controlled fury, but her voice was steady when she spoke into her communication device. "Liberty, this is Carter. Code Red Medical Emergency. Ambassador down. Require immediate extraction." Jake grabbed Lisa's arm with a bloody hand. His voice was weak but clear when he whispered a single phrase that made her eyes go wide with understanding. "Protocol 7. Lisa's face went completely white. She looked up at Chairman Vexathera, who was standing over them with blood on his claws. The alien leader was smiling a terrible smile that showed all of his sharp teeth. Around the chamber, other aliens were celebrating what they had just witnessed. Lisa activated her emergency transmitter and sent a coded message that would change everything. The message was short, but its meaning was clear to every human who received it. Amber Sky, Amber Sky. Protocol 7 initiated. Captain Ben Rogers was drinking coffee in his quarters aboard the UHS Liberty when the emergency message came through. The communication device on his desk began flashing red and making urgent sounds that he had hoped never to hear. He dropped his cup and rushed to answer the call. Lisa Carter's voice was tight with controlled anger as she delivered the coded message. "Liberty, this is Carter. Amber Sky. Amber Sky. Protocol 7 initiated." Ben felt his blood turn to ice. Protocol 7 was something that existed only in classified military manuals. It was the code that meant a human diplomat had been physically attacked by an alien government. In 50 years of human space exploration, it had never been used. Ben had hoped it would never need to be used. He immediately activated the ship's emergency systems and called his senior officers to the bridge. Within minutes, he was transmitting the situation report to Earth Command using the fastest communication channels available. The message included video footage from Lisa's hidden recording devices that showed the entire brutal attack. The transmission reached Earth 12 hours later due to the vast distance between the Council Station and human space. Admiral Patricia Stone was reviewing routine reports at Terra Fleet Command when the priority message arrived. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp blue eyes who had been fighting bureaucrats and politicians for 30 years to build humanity's secret defense network. When she saw the footage of Chairman Vexathera striking Ambassador Morrison, her expression became deadly calm. She watched the video 3 times to make sure she understood exactly what had happened. Then she stood up and walked to the secure communications center that connected her to every human military installation in known space. Patricia had been preparing for this day since she was a young officer. She had studied every war in human history and learned the hard lessons that came from being unprepared. When humans first encountered alien civilizations, she had argued that diplomacy should be backed by hidden strength. Most politicians had disagreed, but a few had listened and given her the resources she needed. The Terra Defense Network had been built in secret over 20 years. Hidden shipyards in asteroid fields had constructed warships that officially did not exist. Research stations disguised as mining operations had developed weapons technology that alien scientists could not imagine. Military bases hidden on remote moons had trained soldiers for battles that hopefully would never come. Patricia activated the network with a single coded transmission that went to 47 locations across human space. The message was simple, but its meaning was clear to every person who received it. The Council has chosen violence. Operation Nemesis is now active. Within hours of receiving the message, human military commanders began implementing plans that had been rehearsed countless times but never executed. Hidden weapons were activated. Disguised warships powered up their engines. Soldiers who had been pretending to be miners and researchers put on their real uniforms and prepared for war. At the Titan shipyards hidden behind Saturn's rings, Admiral Kate Phillips received the activation order while she was inspecting her newest dreadnought. The UHS Terra's Wrath was the largest warship humanity had ever built. It was 1.5 kilometers long and armed with weapons that could crack planets. Kate had been waiting 5 years for orders to take her ship into combat. Colonel Danny Rodriguez got the message at a secret base on Europa, where he commanded the 5th Marine Assault Division. His soldiers had been training for zero-gravity combat and boarding operations. They were experts at fighting in the cramped corridors of space stations and the vast emptiness between stars. Danny immediately began loading his troops onto assault ships that looked like cargo vessels. Dr. Helen Chang received the activation order at a research station near Pluto that was officially studying ice formations. In reality, she had been developing electromagnetic pulse weapons and gravity distortion bombs. Her laboratory held devices that could disable entire fleets or tear apart space stations. Helen began preparing her weapons for immediate deployment. Captain Alex Hunter got the message aboard his ship, the UHS Justice, while he was pretending to survey asteroid mining sites. His vessel looked like a simple exploration craft, but hidden. Beneath its plain exterior were enough missiles to destroy a small moon. Alex immediately set course for the ethereal communion's home system. The activation order reached dozens of other commanders who had been waiting years for this moment. Each of them commanded ships and soldiers that the Galactic Council knew nothing about. While aliens had been dismissing humans as primitive newcomers, the human military had been watching and learning and preparing. Human intelligence officers who had spent years disguised as traders and tourists suddenly revealed their true purpose. They transmitted detailed information about alien military bases and fleet positions. They provided maps of defensive systems and lists of key targets. They sent reports about alien weaknesses and tactical preferences. Admiral Stone stood in the command center of Terra Fleet Headquarters and watched as reports came in from across human space. 53 warships were powering up their drives and heading toward alien territories. 12 assault divisions were boarding transport ships. 6 special weapons teams were activating devices that aliens thought were impossible. She opened a secure channel to Admiral Phillips aboard the Terra's Wrath. "Kate, this is Patricia. How long until you can reach the Council Station?" 18 hours at maximum speed, Admiral. My engines are already spinning up." "Good. I want you there before they have time to think. This needs to be fast and overwhelming. Patricia." Then contacted Colonel Rodriguez. "Danny, are your Marines ready for a boarding operation?" "Yes, ma'am. We have been practicing on mock-ups of Council Station layouts for 2 years. My people know every corridor and every weak point." "Excellent. Coordinate with Admiral Phillips. I want that station secured within the first hour of arrival." Finally, Patricia opened a channel to all human forces simultaneously. Her voice was, "Broadcast to every ship and every soldier in the secret fleet. People of the Terra Defense Network, this is Admiral Stone. For 20 years we have prepared for this day, hoping it would never come. The Galactic Council has made their choice. They believe humans are weak because we prefer diplomacy to violence. They think we are primitive because we are young. Today we will teach them the difference between choosing peace and being unable to fight." She paused and looked at the tactical display showing human forces moving toward alien space. Operation Nemesis is now active. Show them what happens when humanity goes to war. Chairman Vex Athara was enjoying a meal of raw meat in his private chambers when the first reports arrived. A communications officer rushed into the room without waiting for permission. The young Krellian's scales were pale with fear as he delivered his message. "Chairman, there are reports of unknown ships appearing throughout Council space, large vessels of unfamiliar design. They appeared without warning near several member worlds." Vex Athara looked up from his meal with irritation. His claws were still stained with Ambassador Morrison's blood, and he had been savoring the memory of striking the human diplomat. The attack had been broadcast throughout Council space as a warning to other primitive species. "What kind of ships? Probably just more human exploration vessels. Send patrols to escort them away from our territories." The communications officer's voice shook as he continued his report. "Sir, these are not exploration ships. Our sensors indicate they are warships. Very large warships. The biggest one is nearly 2 kilometers long. They are armed with weapons. We cannot identify." For the first time since the attack, Vex Athara felt a cold touch of uncertainty. Humans were not supposed to have large warships. Intelligence reports had consistently shown that human space forces consisted of small exploration vessels and lightly armed patrol ships. The primitive newcomers barely had enough technology to reach other star systems. "Show me the sensor data," Vex Athara commanded. The officer activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. Three-dimensional images appeared showing locations throughout Council space. Red dots marked the positions of unknown vessels. As Vex Athara watched, more red dots appeared on the display. Unknown ships were materializing near important worlds and strategic locations. The largest concentration was approaching the Council station itself. Sensors showed a massive vessel leading a formation of smaller but still enormous warships. The formation was moving at high speed directly toward them with no attempt at concealment or diplomacy. High Mystic Zara Lynn's voice crackled through the communication system from her crystal city on the ethereal homeworld. "Vex Athara. There is a human warship in orbit above our world. It appeared without warning and is transmitting demands for our surrender. How is this possible? Humans do not have such vessels." Hive Queen Ziss's chittering voice joined the communication channel. "The situation is the same here. A dark ship hangs above our primary nesting world. It is larger than our entire defense fleet. My warriors report that its weapons are powered and aimed at our cities." Similar reports came from other council members. Human warships had appeared at every major alien world simultaneously. The coordination and timing suggested planning and preparation that should have been impossible for such a young species. Vex Athara stood up from his chair and activated the emergency alert system. Throughout the council station, alarms began sounding. Defense platforms powered up their weapons and fighter squadrons launched from hidden bays. The station's massive shields flickered to life around its hull. All council forces report to battle. "Stations, unknown hostile vessels are approaching. This is not a drill." Captain Sarah Blake sat in the command chair of the UHS Retribution and watched the council station growing larger on her main screen. Her ship was the lead vessel of the human assault fleet. Behind her flew 29 other warships that had been hidden from alien eyes for decades. Sarah was a veteran of the border wars where humans had fought against pirate fleets in the Outer Rim territories. She had commanded destroyers and cruisers in dozens of battles that alien intelligence services knew nothing about. The conflicts had been kept secret to maintain the impression that humans were peaceful explorers. "Captain, we are receiving multiple hails from the station. They are demanding identification and ordering us to change course," reported her communications officer. Open a channel to the station. All frequencies. I want every alien in that system to hear this message." Sarah stood up and activated the ship's main transmission array. Her voice was broadcast with enough power to reach every vessel and facility in the system. "This is Captain Sarah Blake of the Human Federation Navy ship Retribution. You have 72 hours to surrender those responsible for the assault on Ambassador Morrison, or we will consider all Council territories legitimate military targets." The bridge fell silent as Sarah continued her message. "To be completely clear, this includes Chairman Vexathara and every council member who participated in or endorsed the attack on our diplomatic representative. They will be turned over to human authorities to face trial for their crimes." Sarah gestured to her tactical officer, who began transmitting targeting data to the council station's defense systems. The data showed that human weapons were already locked onto critical systems throughout the station. "You now know that we have the ability to destroy your station and everyone on it. You also know that we have ships positioned at every major council world. This is not a negotiation. This is a demand backed by overwhelming force." Sarah ended the transmission and returned to her command chair. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. These people had trained for years for this moment. They knew their jobs and they knew the stakes. "Captain, the station is powering up its defense systems. I count 48 weapon platforms and over 200 fighter craft launching," reported. Her tactical officer, "Are they targeting us?" "Not yet, sir. They appear to be taking defensive positions around the station." Sarah nodded. The aliens were being cautious, which was smart. They had seen her ship arrive, but they did not yet understand what they were facing. The Retribution looked like a human exploration vessel that had been scaled up to enormous size. Its weapons were hidden beneath hull plating that appeared to be simple armor. "What is the status of our supporting vessels?" "All ships report ready for combat. Admiral Stone sends her compliments and requests permission to begin Phase 2 of the operation." Sarah checked her chronometer. The human fleet had been in position for exactly 1 hour. According to the operation plan, that was long enough for the aliens to understand their situation, but not long enough for them to organize effective resistance. "Signal Admiral Stone. Tell her that Phase 2 is authorized. Also transmit our tactical assessment to all human forces. The aliens have taken defensive positions, but they have not yet committed to combat." "Message sent, Captain. Admiral Stone acknowledges and reports that human forces throughout Council space are ready to proceed." Sarah looked at the tactical display, showing the positions of alien and human vessels. The Council defense fleet was impressive by alien standards. Over 300 ships from various member species had responded to the emergency alert. They outnumbered the human fleet by more than 10 to 1. What the aliens did not know was that numbers alone would not determine the outcome of this battle. Human ships carried weapons and defensive systems that alien scientists thought were impossible. Human commanders had studied every battle the aliens had ever fought and knew exactly how they would respond to different threats. Most importantly, human forces were united under a single command structure, while the alien fleet consisted of ships from 12 different species with different technologies and different tactical doctrines. They had never trained together, and their communication systems were barely compatible. "Captain, incoming transmission from the Council station. Chairman Vexathara wants to speak with you directly." Sarah smiled coldly. "Put him through." "I want to hear what the alien who struck our ambassador has to say for himself." Chairman Vexathara's voice boomed through the communication system of the UHS Retribution. His anger was clear even through the translation devices as he spoke to Captain Blake. "Human Captain, you dare threaten the Galactic Council with your primitive vessels. We have maintained peace in this galaxy for 10,000 years while your species was still crawling in mud. Stand down immediately or face the consequences." Sarah Blake listened to the alien leader's threats with calm patience. She had expected this response. Alien arrogance was so complete that they could not imagine being defeated by humans, even when faced with overwhelming evidence of human military capability. Chairman Vexathara, you have 67 hours remaining to surrender yourself and your co-conspirators. I suggest you use that time wisely. You insignificant creature, I command over 300 warships from 12 different worlds. Your pathetic fleet will be destroyed, and your primitive homeworld will be quarantined for the rest of eternity. Sarah ended the communication and turned to her tactical officer. What is the status of the alien fleet? They are forming up in standard council battle formation, sir. Heavy ships in the center with lighter vessels on the flanks. Fighter squadrons are screening the main force. It is exactly what our intelligence predicted they would do. Sarah nodded. Alien tactical doctrine had not changed in centuries. They fought the same way their ancestors had fought, using formations and strategies that had worked against other alien species. They had no experience fighting humans and did not understand that their predictable tactics would be their downfall. Signal. Admiral Stone, tell her the aliens have rejected our terms and are preparing for battle. Admiral Stone received the message aboard her flagship, the UHS Terra's Wrath. Her massive dreadnought hung in space, surrounded by the full human battle fleet. Every ship was powered up and ready for combat. Weapons that had been tested in secret were charged, and targeting systems were locked onto alien vessels. All ships, this is Admiral Stone. The Council has chosen war over justice. They believe their numbers give them an advantage. We will now demonstrate the difference between quantity and quality. Stone opened a channel to Captain Blake. Sarah, you may begin your attack when ready. Show them what human weapons can do. The battle began when Captain Blake gave a simple order. To her gunnery officer, fire! The UHS Retribution's main guns spoke for the first time in combat. Plasma cannons that had been hidden beneath false hull plating extended and fired concentrated beams of superheated matter. The beams struck 3 alien heavy cruisers simultaneously and tore through their shields like they were made of paper. The alien ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light that lit up the entire battle zone. Debris scattered in all directions, as secondary explosions ripped through their hulls. In less than 10 seconds, 3 of the Council's most powerful warships had been reduced to glowing wreckage. The alien fleet commanders stared at their tactical displays in shock. Their sensors could barely track the human weapons. The plasma beams moved at nearly the speed of light and carried more energy than anything in their experience. The alien ships' shields had been designed to stop the energy weapons that other alien species used. They provided no protection against human technology. All ships attacked the human vessels, Chairman Vexathara screamed over the communication channels. Destroy them before they can fire again. The alien fleet surged forward in a chaotic charge. Ships from different species moved at different speeds and used different weapon systems. Krellian vessels fired particle beams, while ethereal ships launched energy missiles. Hive ships released swarms of fighters that buzzed toward the human formation. Captain Blake watched the alien attack with professional interest. Her tactical computers were tracking every enemy vessel and calculating optimal firing solutions. The aliens were brave, but they were also predictable. They attacked in straight lines using weapons that human shields could easily deflect. Helm. Bring us about to heading 27 Mark IV. Tactical prepare kinetic rounds. Let us show them what real weapons look like. The Retribution turned with surprising grace for such a large vessel. Its engines had been designed using technology that aliens thought was impossible. The ship could accelerate and maneuver like a fighter craft despite being the size of a city. The ship's kinetic weapons fired next. Solid projectiles accelerated to significant fractions of light speed streaked toward the alien formation. Unlike energy weapons, these rounds could not be deflected by shields or absorbed by armor. They punched through alien hulls like bullets through tissue paper. 6 more alien ships died in the second volley. Their hulls ruptured and atmosphere vented into space, carrying debris and bodies. The kinetic rounds continued through the wreckage and struck ships behind the initial targets. A single human weapon destroyed multiple alien vessels. The other human ships joined the battle with devastating effect. The UHS Justice targeted ethereal energy ships with electromagnetic pulse weapons that overloaded their crystal matrices. The UHS Vengeance used gravity bombs against hive vessels that crushed their organic hulls. The UHS Reckoning fired quantum torpedoes that phased through alien shields and exploded inside enemy ships. Alien commanders tried to adapt to human tactics, but they were fighting a battle they did not understand. Their weapons could not penetrate human shields. Their sensors could not track human movements. Their communication systems were being jammed by human electronic warfare. The human ships moved through the alien formation like predators among prey. They struck from unexpected angles using weapons the aliens had never seen. When alien ships tried to surround them, the humans simply accelerated away at speeds that should have been impossible. Admiral Stone watched the battle from her command center and felt grim satisfaction. Her fleet was performing exactly as designed. 20 years of secret development had produced weapons and tactics that alien species could not counter. The battle was not even close to being fair. Admiral, the alien fleet is breaking apart. Their formation has collapsed, and individual ships are trying to retreat, reported her tactical officer. Do not let any of them escape. I want every council vessel either destroyed or disabled. This needs to be a complete demonstration of human capability. The battle continued for exactly 17 minutes. When it ended, 247 alien vessels had been destroyed or captured. The remaining ships had surrendered or were drifting powerless in space. The mighty council fleet that had ruled the galaxy for centuries had been swept aside like leaves in a storm. Captain Blake opened a channel to the council station where Chairman Vexithara was watching his fleet die. Chairman, this was a demonstration. Surrender now or we will show you what human warfare truly looks like. The silence that followed the destruction of the council fleet was deafening. Chairman Vexithara stood in the command center of the council station, staring at tactical displays that showed the wreckage of his once mighty armada. 300. Ships reduced to debris and prisoners in less than 20 minutes. The humans had not even used their full fleet. Reports came in from other council worlds painting the same picture of complete defeat. Every major alien military installation was either destroyed or under human control. The species that aliens had dismissed as primitive newcomers had demonstrated military capabilities that seemed impossible. High Mystic Zaralin's voice came through the communication system from her homeworld. The energy being's usual calm was replaced by something approaching panic. Vexithara, our defense fleet is gone. The human ship above our world destroyed 60 vessels without taking any damage. They are demanding the surrender of our government. What are your orders? Hive Queen Zeus chittered frantically as she reported from her nesting world. The humans have landed soldiers on our surface. They move through our tunnels like they have been here before. Our warriors cannot stop them. They use weapons that turn our own biology against us. Similar reports came from every council member world. Human forces had appeared everywhere simultaneously with detailed knowledge of alien defenses and weaknesses. It was clear that humans had been planning this operation for many years, while aliens believed they were dealing with harmless explorers. Admiral Stone's voice echoed through every communication system in council space. Her words reached every alien leader and every military commander. Attention all council forces and governments. You have witnessed a small demonstration of human military capability. Your fleets are destroyed. Your worlds are occupied. Your leaders are surrounded. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally, or we will begin destroying your cities. Vexithara looked around the command center at the faces of his subordinates. The young officers who had cheered when he struck the human ambassador now stared at him with fear and accusation. They had followed his lead into a war they could not win against an enemy they had completely underestimated. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked his chief of staff in a voice barely above a whisper. Vexithara realized that he had no good options left. Fighting would only result in the complete destruction of council civilization. Surrender meant the end of alien domination in the Galaxy. But at least surrender would allow some of his people to survive. Signal the human fleet. Tell them that the Galactic Council surrenders unconditionally. The surrender was broadcast throughout alien space within minutes. Council forces laid down their weapons, and alien governments prepared for occupation. The age of alien dominance, that had lasted for 10,000 years, was over. Admiral Stone arrived at the Council station aboard her flagship with a full military escort. She walked through corridors that had once been forbidden to humans, accompanied by Marines who had spent years training for this moment. Alien beings pressed themselves against walls and stared at the small human woman who had brought their civilization to its knees. Ambassador Jake Morrison met Admiral Stone at the entrance to the council chamber. His face still bore the scars from Vex Thera's attack, but his expression was calm and professional. He had recovered from his injuries during the brief war and insisted on being present for the formal surrender. Admiral, thank you for responding so quickly to our situation. Ambassador, it was my pleasure. No one attacks a human diplomat and walks away unpunished. They entered the council chamber together, followed by a full company of human soldiers. The circular room that had once showcased alien power now felt like a prison. Council members sat in their species-specific seats, looking defeated and afraid. At the center of the chamber, Vex Thera waited in chains. Jake walked to the center of the room and looked up at the aliens who had dismissed humanity as primitive. His scarred face was a reminder of their arrogance and the price they had paid for underestimating human resolve. Members of the former Galactic Council, you are here to face judgment for crimes against humanity. You attacked a diplomatic representative under a flag of truce. You declared your intention to quarantine and oppress the human species. You have forfeited any right to govern this galaxy. Vex Thera raised his head and spoke in a voice filled with bitter defeat. You have won, human. What happens now? Will you slaughter us all as we would have done to you? Jake looked at the alien leader who had struck him and felt no desire for revenge. Humanity had proven its point and established its dominance. Now it was time to build something better than what the Council had created. No, Chairman, we are not like you. Humanity will establish a new government based on justice and equality rather than species supremacy. The Terran Protectorate will govern. Former Council space with representatives from all species, including yours. Jake gestured to Admiral Stone, who stepped forward with a document that established the new political order. All former Council territories will be administered by human governors, but each species will maintain autonomy over their internal affairs. Military forces will be limited and monitored to prevent future conflicts. Trade and technology will be shared equally among all member species. The Council members listened to the terms with growing amazement. They had expected enslavement or extermination, but the humans were offering partnership under human leadership. It was more generous than anything the Council had ever offered to conquered species. Those responsible for the attack on Ambassador Morrison will face trial under human law. If convicted, they will serve sentences appropriate to their crimes. This includes community service on human colonies where they can learn about the species they so thoroughly underestimated. Vex Thera and 6 other council members were led away to face trial. The remaining aliens were sworn in as provisional governors under human oversight. The transition of power was swift and efficient. Jake Morrison was appointed as the first human high administrator of former council space. His scarred face became a symbol throughout the galaxy of humanity's willingness to seek peace, but ability to wage war when necessary. His first official act was to establish the Morrison Doctrine. Any species that chooses violence against human diplomats chooses violence against all of humanity. We will respond with overwhelming force and absolute determination. But any species that approaches us with genuine respect will find humanity to be the most loyal of allies. News of the human victory spread throughout the galaxy within weeks. Alien civilizations beyond former council space heard the stories and chose to approach humanity with careful diplomacy rather than arrogant dismissal. They learned that humans preferred negotiation to conquest, but would not hesitate to fight when pushed. The scar on Jake Morrison's face became famous throughout known space. It reminded everyone that underestimating humanity's resolve was a mistake that no civilization could afford to make twice. The galaxy had learned that humans might choose peace, but they were never weak. In the years that followed, the Terran Protectorate became the most stable and prosperous government the galaxy had ever known. Species that had been enemies for centuries learned to work together under human guidance. Technology advanced rapidly as different alien sciences combined with human innovation. Chairman Vex Thera served his sentence working in human agricultural colonies where he learned to appreciate the species he had called parasites. When released, he became an advocate for human leadership and spent his remaining years teaching other aliens about the importance of respecting all intelligent life. The galaxy was at peace under human rule, not because humans were the strongest, but because they had proven they would fight for justice while working to build something better for everyone.